Here we are. Okay, let me play the opening music and we'll get started. So you want to be. Can you hear it, Eric? Dance with
I can
me.
hear it.
Okay.
Want to start dancing
You
too?
wanna be
So you want to be
a
a cool kid.
hanging with an innocent,
Looking real cute
cute
and fine. Casting your baby net.
So you wanna be.
So you want to be. Bop, 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 bop. There we go. There we go. I'm Bonnie D. Welcome to We Dish 2 TOO Saucy Dame and my new cool dude today. I'm so honored to welcome him, Eric M. Those of you who are looking for the real name, it's Myers. You can find him on LinkedIn. There you go. But to me, he's Eric M. How are you, Eric?
I'm doing spectacular today, Bonnie. How about yourself?
Well, I'm spectacular if you're spectacular. I have to tell everybody, I've known Eric for a couple of years. I think he probably is barely old enough to have a driver's license. I'm only teasing. He's one of the youngest people on my shows. I never reference age, but I have to. And Eric is one of the kindest, most gracious people I have met in years. He never starts an email without, "Hi, Bonnie. I hope you're having a wonderful day." I have never met anybody and we're going to talk as part of you being cool, a cool dude, Eric. We're going to talk about where that comes from. So, are you ready? Oh, first of all, where are you? Tell everybody where you are.
So I am in Canada, specifically Calgary, Alberta, Canada, i.e., kind of the frozen tundra right now. It is, the place of snow, the place of cold weather, but it's also the place of sunshine too. So that kind of, mitigates the, frigid temperatures that can exist, this time of year.
Well, you bring the sunshine. You have sunshine in your heart. I know that. I'm in Tennessee, in what's called East Tennessee, and we just finished 4 inches of snow a couple days ago, and there's no need for sweeping it or for shoveling it because the sun came out, even though it was in the 20s and 30s Fahrenheit, sir. The snow is disappearing, and there are a couple of little patches of it around, so there's not much left. I've learned when you move to the South, and I was in North Carolina for a while, and we had a snow soon after I moved there many years ago, and I asked neighbors if they had a shovel. I didn't bring a snow shovel from New York because I didn't need one. I lived in a building and the staff took care of the shoveling and we had a lot of snow in New York. And somebody loaned me a shovel and I worked, oh, Eric, it was like an hour and a half. I was outside 4:45 in the afternoon. It was almost dusk. It was winter and it was cold and I was shoveling and my back was hurting. And then I woke up the next morning and it was blazing sunshine and the snow all melted on its own. It's
Go
like,
figure.
oh, go figure. Yeah, I was preemptive on that one, or I tried to be proactive. So I learned my lesson. When you're in the South, do not shovel. Let it take care of itself, and have plenty of milk and eggs and bread in the house, and that's fine. So I have a special introductory. I'm not even going to call it a poem. I'm going to call it a rhyming bio for you, and I'm going to read it. Let's see if you recognize the person who I'm talking about. So let me start here. You know us well, I think, Bonnie D and Eric M too, seasoned in life, me more than him, and we love what we do. From LinkedIn's halls to social's embrace, we love sharing insights in our savvy people space. Now on We Dish, we are here to play, lighting up life in our uniquely fresh way. Welcoming Eric M, a cool dude I'm proud to call my guest. Here's my rhyming intro, then he will tell us the rest. So, the story of Eric M., a lifetime of learning and style. When Bonnie D speaks with Eric M., it always makes her smile. Born on a June day in 95 in Edmonton, Alberta, Eric M. came alive. Alive in 95 is supposed to rhyme. At Edgemont School in the elementary grades, Eric's love of learning began and never fades. Team sports, football, baseball, and more built bonds and friendship he will long adore. His mom, a professor, preached wisdom and toil. His dad in finance sowed business's soil. His sister inspired Eric's adventurous zest, while teachers moved him to be his very best. Family time was a treasure to keep. Wrestling, soap operas, and football ran deep. In 2007 at Tom Baines Junior High was next. Science, gym, and drama, his dreams did flex. William Aberhart High in 2010 was his space where lifelong friendships found their place. By 2013, Eric walked the stage, ready to start a new academic page. Mount Royal University called his name. Eric, Eric, Eric. Finance and economics became his game. At Safeway's Deli, his first job began serving customers, perfecting his plan. From Sears to Aritzia, passions took flight. Fashion and style brought Eric delight. In finance at Scotiabank, his skills grew wide, helping clients with care and pride. Canadian Western Bank called Eric near to be close to family he always holds dear. 2019 brought an MBA to pursue. In Calgary, his dreams found something new. From finance to management, his passion grew clear. Organizational behavior became his career. Teaching at MRU brought joy and pride, shaping minds with wisdom as his guide. Marketing, HR, and OB he taught, sharing the life lessons he brought. A traveler at heart, Eric's roamed far and wide through Europe, Latin lands, and the U.S.'s side. Cars bring him joy from BMW's might, me too, to Sebring rides under the moon's light. Through every twist, Eric M. stays grounded and true to the values his family lovingly imbue. His mom, his dad, his sister, grandparents, and friends all shaped his path through turns and bends. Eric M., a man of ambition and grace, a teacher, a traveler, a life to embrace. From Edmonton start to Calgary stride, his story is one of strength, commitment, passion, and pride. How'd you like it?
Well, it takes a lot to leave me speechless, Bonnie, but that was incredible on so many different fronts as I kind of, just sit back and listen to everything that has happened, in, life so far. And it just, takes a moment for me to realize what a journey it has been. And, as I'll talk about more this morning or today, I'm very much someone who's a go-getter, like we were talking about earlier with some of our other, great friends and companions on
Yep.
your show who are, very much type A, driven, ambitious. But I've learned in life it's sometimes good to just sit back, take a pause, reflect on things, smell the roses, so to speak.
There
And
you
that's
go.
something that I certainly tried to, exhibit there and, made me realize just how thankful and appreciative I am for everything that has happened and the amazing people that have led me to where I am and just made life the greatest it has been.
Lovely. I want to finish the intro here, which is not necessarily, it's the rest of your poem is done, but we're here on We Dish, chatting on life's score, culture, music, food, and oh, so much more. Join us live or on demand, day or night. We won't be here at night, but you can find us on demand. That's why they invented it. And enjoy our dishing with shared delight. Meet us for real in our live streaming glow. I'm glowing, I'm glowing. Comments are welcome. Just play nice. We know who you are, you know. We Dish, two saucy dame and cool dude, too. Bonnie D and Eric M. dishing on life's fun. Pour vous. That's French. Okay, now I'm done. I'm glad you liked the rhyme. I don't call them poems anymore. I call them rhymes. So, Eric, did I leave anything out? Did I dare to leave anything out? Tell me.
Everything was covered up into the T of, my time working at Safeway a few years ago, let's say. So every little detail was perfectly checked off. So amazing job as always, Bonnie. You have a true art form of words and just expression of everything.
You're very kind. And I have a VA, a virtual assistant, her name is Sylvia Speed. I've told you about her. Yes, we'll leave that alone. But she's virtual and she helped me. But I did a lot of work on this one because she gave me the outline, but there were a lot of lines I didn't like, some of the rhymes I didn't like. So I went back to her and I sent her my version and she said, "Bravo, you did great." So she liked it. She liked mine better than hers. There we go. Eric, let's talk about cool dude music. Do you have any songs you want to share with us that define you, describe you? Tell us a little more about how you are a cool dude. Go ahead.
Thank you, Bonnie. I would say when I was, reflecting on, some of the songs that most resonate with me to this day, or some songs that really, continue to strike a chord, I would say, one that I think I've used a few times on your other shows is Pearl Jam. I'm a big Pearl Jam fan. I
Hmm.
really like Eddie Vedder and some of the, lyrics within, a ton of the, various albums and songs that Pearl Jam has created over the years. And I think that there's one song that especially resonates with me from Pearl Jam. I know I've talked about Better Man before, but another one in specifics is Alive. From I believe their album 10, in the early 90s. And Alive is something that's important to understand on many different levels. It's a true gift to be alive, as I've learned more and more over the years. Having lost, friends, family members, and other loved ones, each gift or each day that we, are alive is truly a gift. And as
Yeah.
I've gotten older, I've truly come to appreciate, how, important it is to be alive and really to just cherish, everything that life has to offer and just the true, joy that it continues to provide on so many different fronts. So that's the first song that I think
Okay.
I'd like to think ties to me as a cool dude.
Okay. What's another one? Give me a couple more.
Number or second one would be Party Rock Anthem by LMFAO. So two parts for this one. Number
Okay.
one is it was very popular. We were jokingly talking about age earlier, and I always like to, talk about it as me trying to live in a youthful way, so to speak. Is when I was in high school, as we were, as you so eloquently stated in the bio, this was one of the more popular songs, when I was in high school. So for nostalgic reasons, I guess, that song still resonates with me. That song still, brings a smile on my face. And the other one too is, while in life we should all take pride in what we do, work wise, be the best family member that we can be,
Hmm.
it's still important, I think, to have kind of a party like mindset to, dance, to sing, to not take ourselves too seriously. So that's one of the reasons why I like Party Rock Anthem is I always kind of have that, mindset in the back of my head is yes, taking pride in my work, trying to be as, professional as possible in the workplace, but not, being too serious and not being too tight, i.e. why there's no tie today. And just
Yes, I
letting,
noticed. Go ahead.
so I would say that's the second one.
Okay. What's your third song?
Third song would be Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke. So that came out towards the end of my time in high school. And that was, again, for nostalgia reasons, very popular at the time and one that I enjoyed listening to with my friends, as we were, walking across the convocation stage in
Yeah.
2013 and just, how popular on the radio it was at that time.
Blurred
I think,
lines. I remember it well. Okay, go
yeah.
ahead. I didn't expect that one, but if you ever saw the video, you know why I'm my eyes are big. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead,
Oh,
Eric.
I was just gonna say, and the music video too for that is a whole other, not necessarily discussion in itself, but one that certainly, sparks, different reactions, sparks
Eye-opening.
eye-opening to say the least. Yeah.
Yeah, were you
So
old enough to see that? We'll leave that one alone. Go ahead, please. Please proceed. Go ahead.
yeah, so more so from I guess the music part of the song. I guess the reason again why resonates with me is again, uh, just the popularity it had when I was finishing up high school, and the second is as I get a little bit older in life, video aside from that song, uh, I've learned life is not always black and white. It's not always right or wrong.
Right.
This and that. There's a lot of quote unquote blurred lines for how we see things, how one lives their life. And it's really caused me to be more empathetic towards other human beings, as I would, hope other people are empathetic towards myself as well. So I think that's the other reason, from more of an intellectual sense, I guess, why I really like that song is just understanding that life and so many things are not clear or unclear. It's kind of that ambiguity or that blurriness, so to speak, that I think is why I've come to appreciate some parts of that song
That's
more so.
interesting. You're absolutely right. The concept of blurred lines, that is where we are in the world today. The human and the AI, the automated and the manual, the humanity versus the technology. We are having blurred lines, and it's confusing and upsetting for a lot of people, and it's scary and it's also exciting. I think those lines have been blurred on many different levels. Thank you for that. That's very, very interesting. Any other songs, or you want me to do mine? You ready for mine?
I'm ready for yours. Let's hear it.
Okay, well, before you were born, I was a disco dancer. I was doing competitions and teaching and everything. And I had a professional dance partner, and we were doing the hustle and line dances. And I was also doing teaching cha-cha and what we used to call Lindy, which is East Coast swing. And we just had a good time. And Donna Summer, I know you've heard of her. She passed away, unfortunately. The queen of disco to me always will be. She had a wonderful discography, the word is, for her songs. And I recently realized that Donna Summer's songs are descriptive of me, my life, and how I think I'm a saucy dame. So the list goes, she works hard for the money, which I have all my life. Hot stuff, I've been called that by, But yeah, I used to be a little bit now on the radio. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I've been on the radio for 25 years. No more tears. Enough is enough. There have been a lot of bumps along the road, and I have done my share of crying. Last dance, I'm not dancing right now, but I have had many last dances with people and with occasions, and I'm not going to cry. And I Feel Love, which was a Giorgio Moroder, a very mechanical song. I Feel Love, a lot of stuff going on. I also have some other songs. You Don't Own Me by Leslie Gore. We'll leave that one alone. I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, Helen Reddy. You mentioned dancing. I like Dancing Queen by ABBA. Happy Dance by Mercy Me, which is a wonderful band. I Feel Better When I'm Dancing by Megan Trainor. And the last one I like is a song I haven't heard, but I found this title by Janelle Monáe, who I think looks fabulous. I haven't heard her music though. Queen with a period after each. And the line is, "She who writes the movie owns the script and the sequel." What do you think of that, Eric? Cool?
Wow. That's
Yeah.
cool on so many different fronts. And just kind of like that timeline you were talking about for Donna Summer's songs, respectively, and kind of showing the sequence of why each one resonates with you. And
Yeah.
the one about, The Last Dance, really struck a chord with me too about how we all kind of have, various last dances in life. Sometimes we realize when they're coming, other times they can be unexpected, but just the significance that it has, for both of us, and
I'm
especially.
fighting back the tears right now. I didn't realize my list was going to make me cry. You're making me cry. Okay, you got to stop that. You never make the host cry. You can make her laugh, you can make her sigh, but you never make her cry. There's a poem. There's
Deal.
a poem for you. Okay, let's go to New Year's resolutions. Yay or nay? You believe in them, you like them, you keep them, you don't. You say, "Bah, who needs that?" What's your POV, Eric?
I was talking about this with my mom, last week, and really, for me, it's more not so much a nay, but it's less to me about New Year's resolutions. It's more about what habits slash, decisions is one going to continue to make in their lives, or is one looking to do a little bit differently. So I'm more into kind of like goal setting, so to speak, and I kind of did this, towards the end of 2024 when the exam season was wrapping up about things that I wanted to kind of check off or continue to work towards for this upcoming year. So it wasn't as much a resolution. It was more about these are the goals that I'm working towards, or more specifically, some of the goals I'm wanting to maintain, i.e., trying to get as much sleep as possible, trying to spend as much quality time with family, doing some traveling, as we were talking about earlier in my biography, maintaining good habits and instilling my values as well. So to me, less about resolutions, more about value maintaining, having good habits, and I think just living the best life possible.
I've heard that from more and more people. I don't do resolutions. I wake up every day and I say, what do I want to do today? Not what do I want to achieve or accomplish? What am I going to do? How many live radio shows do I have? Or I still call this radio. It's old fashioned. How many video shows do I have? How many live streams? What are my obligations for next week's show? What do I owe people in terms of graphics and promotions? What do I have to set up on my restream for getting the next show going? What kind of research do I need to do? What do I want to eat? And is it the day when I go to the supermarket? And my supermarket life is gauged by how many bananas I have left. I usually buy 9 a week and I have one every morning in my milkshake, but sometimes they don't last the whole week because they get really brown and mushy and I don't want them. So, so I overcompensate and I like milk in my milkshake. So do I have any milk left? Okay. And then what do I have for dinner for the next 3 nights? So I gauge it by and what kind of bread is in the refrigerator, and do I have enough large eggs in the. So I look in the fridge and I say, okay, what day do I need to go to the supermarket? And that's an outing. I will tell you that I think I'm the only person who dresses up to go to the supermarket, Eric.
That makes
I
two of us then.
There you go. I knew I liked you. I have my little red drummer boots, which are red, like velvet on velvet with a pattern in them with a little bit of a chunky heel, about a 3 inch heel, 2.5, 3 inch heel. And they have a zipper on the side, gold zipper. They're really pretty. And I have my black dress. Some nights I wear my red flower. Sometimes I don't. Always hair and makeup done. And a coat that's a wool jacket, even though it's Tennessee, it's cold here this winter, and a wool jacket that has a little bit of a wool ruffle around the bottom, just a little bit around the bottom. And I go in there and I'm the only woman wearing lipstick with red hair. And I say, okay, I'll still be friendly, y'all. And I start start conversations with people. Find somebody who works there and I'll say, "Hey, how come you're not carrying tarragon in the spice aisle?" Nobody has it anymore, by the way. You have to go to an online spice store to buy tarragon. The stores no longer have it.
Really?
Yes, it's just not available here in the States right now. I've tried everywhere. And I'll start conversations with people or on the checkout line. If I see somebody with a smaller order, I'll say, "Why don't you go ahead of me?" And be, "Oh, thank you very much." Or I'll start a conversation with the girl. I'll say, "Oh, did I break $50? Really? Well, last week it was 75." And I'll start conversations with people just to have somebody to talk to. And I park far away, so I get a good walk out of it. And so I don't know why I'm telling you all of this. That's an event, but that's part of me being a saucy dame is because I have the sauce, and I don't care if anybody else does or not.
I'm so glad you did tell me about that, Bonnie, because that again resonates with me on so many different
Tell
levels.
me, tell me.
One of the things, is I love grocery shopping with my mom. As we were talking about earlier, I'm very close with, my family and
Yeah.
especially my mother. When I was living, at home, when I was still finishing up my schooling, especially my K to 12 schooling, one of my favorite,
Mm.
weekend activities with my mom was going to the grocery store to,
Nice.
fill up the cart, walk through each aisle, whether we needed something from that aisle or not, as a way, like you were saying, to just have conversations, strike up, information from people too. And I find that that's kind of a lost art form within society. And again, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to pass judgment to those that don't talk in
No.
grocery stores, those that, keep to themselves or their phones, variety of reasons why that happens. But I think it's important that we take solace in simple things in life. And, I look back and one of the fondest memories I have with, my mom when I was growing up was going grocery shopping and just the conversations we'd have and kind of, memories that were made in that sense. Always would dress up too. I'd always try and spike my hair or be some type of presentable as well as, my grandparents were big on that. Is just being, classy and trying to exhibit, confidence and showing that you care. So this is why I'm glad that you brought that up because it just struck a bell with me and took me down memory lane there for a second.
Well, I'll tell you, back in the day when I would travel on airplanes, I dressed up. I wore a hat, I wore a suit, I wore nice shoes. And when I went to the theater, when I lived in New York most of my life, I always dressed up to go to the theater. Today, people are wearing anything and everything. I haven't been in several years, but it's changed. I like that formality. I like that dressing up. I liked suits and ties, and I liked skirts and nice shoes and all of that. So anyway, and I think I was a fashionista in high school. My mom and I found a store in Flushing, New York. I'm trying to think of what the name of the shoe store was, something fashion shoes or market shoes. And we had a salesperson named Murray, little old guy. And oh, sample shoes, sample shoes. These were the samples. My foot was a size 5 or 5.5, which is fairly small for a woman. And we would go in and he would have just boxes and boxes on this wall. Eric, I haven't remembered this in decades, in a century. We would go home and the prices were good. And these were samples that had been on display in department stores that hadn't been bought. These were the samples that nobody bought. So sample shoes. And he had stores for, beautiful shoes from beautiful stores. And they were all at a discount. So I'd go home with 3 or 4 pairs of shoes and I wore different shoes to school. This was in high school. I was the pianist for the girls' chorus, if you can believe that. I accompanied
Wow.
on a baby grand on stage the girls' chorus. And even in college, when I went to a couple colleges, I wore a hat to class, a really cool yellow felt thing with a brim, It was really cool back in the day. Oh, everybody was wearing hats in those days. But anyway, I liked dressing up, and that's why I always have my flower of different colors and my red mic and my signature. That's my brand. So yeah, I'm not gonna. My kids used to say to me, "Mom, all the mothers are wearing jeans to pick up their kids at school or to go to meetings. Why do you have to dress up?" I s- I swear they did. I would embarrass the heck out of them if I told them that now, but I'll tell them anyway. We know that. And I said, because this is me. This is who I am. This is how I like to be. So anyway, that was it. Very interesting. Now, I want to know a little bit before we go on. I want to know a little bit about your teaching. Where do you teach right now? To whom do you teach? Are you a lecturer? Are you an actual day-to-day teacher? What kind of classes? Just give us a brief overview of your teaching career, please.
So I'm an instructor at Mount Royal University. So that was the alma mater for me from when I did my undergrad degree. a few years ago now. So I said to someone yesterday on campus, it's almost kind of a full circle experience in many reasons. Is, my mom, worked as a full professor at Mount Royal for many years and recently retired. That was kind of my first exposure to Mount Royal was, not as a former student of hers, but when she worked as an instructor, my sister and I, would always, come and visit her, or we would have, summer camps, at Mount Royal. So that was kind of like a second home for us in many ways. And then after I graduated, from the university as an undergrad student in 2017, worked, in the banking and finance industry for a couple of years, a little bit of fashion as well. And then in the fall of 2021, I came back, as an instructor, and the rest is history, so to speak. So I've been teaching at Mount Royal since 2021 and largely to first and second year students. So I get the full exposure of kind of that Gen Z, soon to be Generation Alpha, entering, post-secondary, university experience. So it's been, rewarding and refreshing on so many different fronts. It feels like this is an opportunity for me to give back to the next generation, to teach the next, not just the future, but also the present, business workers. So I love what I do. I get to teach marketing classes. I get to teach, organizational behavior, human resources management, and occasionally in the finance area. And it just fills me up on so many different fronts. Yeah, it can get a little bit stressful sometimes during exam season and, when marking piles up, but I'm very thankful and grateful for what I do. And it continues to be a huge source of joy and excitement for me.
I want to be in one of your classes.
Oh, I was just gonna say the invite is always there too, especially if it's a virtual class. As well, Bonnie, the link is always there, not just to yourself, but to all our other great, mutual
Interesting.
friends and companions.
We have something else in common, I realized. I have a bachelor's in psychology. I went to Sarah Lawrence College when it was all girls. I can say that. Uh, Famous people like Barbara Walters went there, Yoko Ono went there, Leslie Gore. It's my party. I saw her in the bookstore once. They were all long gone, Barbara Walters and Yoko Ono, but they had graduated and they were professionals by then. But then I went to Boston University. I was young married, and my husband was at Harvard Architecture. We moved to Boston, and I finished my degree at Boston University. And then he decided we were going to go to the West Coast where he was born. So after I divorced, I decided that the marriage wasn't working, but we had two children, and I needed to go to work.
Mhm.
And it just a long story short, I didn't know what to do. What do you do with a bachelor's degree in psychology when you're living in Eugene, Oregon? And I had no professional experience, so my parents sent me a bunch of brochures. This was before email, Eric. This was before cell phones, Eric. The package arrived with all these brochures for different careers. I don't know where they found these, but they did. And one of them was computer programmer. And I looked at it, I said, "What's that? That sounds interesting." And I showed some friends and they said, "Oh, we've got a community college. It's 2 bus rides away from where I didn't even have a car at that point. And my kids were in school very close by at an elementary school. One was at a babysitter and one was up the block at the elementary school. So
Mhm.
my friend said, 2 buses and you go to Lane Community College. So I went. I'm getting to the point where we have something in common here. And I went to Lane Community College and I said, "Hi, I have a bachelor's degree and I have, a lot of credits, but what kind of an education would you give me at a community college? I'm postgraduate basically. And what is this computer class all about?" And the registrar took me aside and she said, "It's good, but it's filled. Here's what you do." She said, "We'll give you credits for whatever you've got. You could get a 2-year degree here. I want you to go to the class for 2 weeks, 3 times a week for 2 weeks. Get on your bus and come to class. Find a chair in the back, stand in the back. I promise you, in 2 weeks, most of the people will drop out because they have no idea what's required for this class. And we will have, true story, we will have room for you. And I did. And in 2 weeks, the class was half empty. And I went back to the registrar and she said, "Let's sign you up." And I took a 2-year degree and I took business statistics and I took programming languages and operations and I got two AS, Associate of Science degrees. I think they were AS degrees, yes. And I graduated with a 4.0. And here's the part where we have something in common. They hired me. right away after the 2 years. I was in New York with my kids vacationing for the summer briefly to visit my parents, and I got a call. They said, "We want you to apply for a particular job," and I did. And then I got a call 2 weeks later, and they said, "You got the job." So I was running a statewide computer program. I was working for a boss, and I was the coder, the programmer analyst for a statewide community college information system right out of
Wow,
school.
very
So
nice.
I went from being a student to having a little office and actually running something and programming something. And then my boss left in 2 years, and I took over the whole system, statewide community college information system. I was the programmer analyst doing contract programming for somebody named Alan in Salem, Oregon, who would call me up, Bonnie, get out a ruler, get out a legal pad, draw a line here, draw a line here, put these 4 columns here and these 4 rows here. You're going to program it, make it happen. Bye. And I would program it. I still have paper with the notes from those phone calls from Alan. That's how we did it in the old days. Anyway, I thought you'd get a kick out of that. So, yes.
That's incredible. Well, can I ask a quick follow-up question for you
Sure,
on
please. Yeah.
there? I know it was different stage in your life from one part of the country to another, but how did you enjoy living, in the eastern area of the US, growing up in New York, spending some time in Boston, and then all the way on the other end in Oregon? Because haven't been to Oregon, but I've been to so many other parts of the states and how each is different. So I'm just curious to know from your perspective what you would like and dislike maybe about each, part of the country, so to speak.
Whose show is this, Eric? I'm holding teeth. Well, I've enjoyed something about each of the places I've lived, and I've been in some place never fewer than I think 5 years. And I've lived in Eugene, Oregon, for maybe 10 years. New York, 32 years after Oregon, 32 years in New York, near where I grew up, and then 5 years in Durham, North Carolina, and I'm 2.5 years here in Loudon, Tennessee. Don't ask me how I got here. I have enjoyed something about every place that I've lived, but it was interesting when I went to the West Coast. People were in awe. Oh, you're from New York. We hear that people are on the streets in Manhattan all day long. Why is it so crowded? And I'm Jewish, and people said, "Oh, can you tell us all about the Torah? And can you tell us what your views on life?" I said, "Listen, I'm not a rabbi. I'm just a practicing person in this faith."
Yeah.
The questions were quite interesting. And when I went back to New York to visit my parents in the summers with my kids, I would go to Tiffany's and buy gifts for little gifts, Bloomingdale's, and I'd buy gifts for my friends, and they'd say, "Oh, she got me something from New York. Isn't that cool?" So there was this you're from New York. It's like they'd never heard of anybody from. It was very, very strange.
Yeah.
The other places I've lived, just very, very interesting. Cambridge was a hoot because we were in North Cambridge, which was a very multi-family, multi-ethnic community where 3 generations, you can appreciate this. The grandparents lived on the top of the house, the daughter and her husband and their children lived in the rest of the house. 3 generations all in a little tiny 2-story house.
Mm.
Imagine that. People from they had cul-de-sacs in the neighborhood in Cambridge where you'd drive up this driveway and there'd be 3 or 4 or 5 houses, and people's grandparents and aunts and uncles lived in the same house. There were Greeks and there were Italians and there were everybody from everything was there. It was very, very interesting. So I found that it's like a fabric, different kinds of fabric. There are different textures and different colors and different shades and different uses of the fabric and different feel to the fabric. So I think I've collected a little bit, but I pride myself in not having a New York accent, although some people tell me they can do it. Because I talk fast sometimes, and there you go. So, yeah. So thank you for asking. That's interesting. Nobody has ever asked me quite that way. You need your own radio show one of these days, I reckon. Okay, let's move this along. Here, I'm looking. We're live streaming and it's going very well. We're going from excellent to fair on the connectivity here on Restream, but we're doing very well. Let's go to coffee or tea, brewed instant, calf versus decaf, homemade versus Starbucks, or whatever you have up there. Latte, espresso, cappuccino, the quantity, the quality, cup or mug, pod or straight, or how do you do it, Eric? What do you like to drink?
Well, excellent question. So, full transparency, I never used to be a big coffee or tea fan. I was just more into water or the occasional glass of scotch or bourbon, when I was of
Excuse
legal
me.
age.
Yes, okay.
But now, clearly, coffee, clearly, brewed coffee either through a Keurig machine if I'm making it at home just to, manage, money and expenses. But if I'm going out, I do love going to coffee shops. I do love going to coffee spots, especially when I'm traveling. That's one of the most exciting things that I enjoy. Like you were talking about earlier about each city that you've lived in kind of having its own type of
Hmm.
fabric. I find that each city, especially in the US, and you can appreciate this as much as anyone, has its own kind of fabricness of, how they have a coffee shop set up, i.e., a coffee shop in certain parts of Boston is different than right in downtown Manhattan within New York, is different than in, Southern California or in Los Angeles. Coffee shop experience is different in the southern US, whether
Yes.
it's in Florida or Texas. So coffee, 100% for me. It's a sense of calmness. It's an experience for me. Something that I get excited about each and every day is just having, 2 cups of regular coffee and then a cup of decaf, in the afternoon is, I always say I'm a coffee addict now, but it's something that just provides me with the sense of calmness. I love, meeting people for coffee too. So it's been almost part of my DNA and fabric.
Interesting. So the caffeine doesn't rattle you. It doesn't get you up. So you say calm. You have 2 cups of regular coffee, so that's a caffeine, and that makes you calm. Just the experience of the coffee.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things where I mean, if I had probably a cup of regular coffee late into the evening, I know it would, impact my sleep, but it doesn't give me any extra energy throughout the day. As you know from me being on your show so many times, I've already have enough energy as it is. So
Yes.
caffeine doesn't
Yeah.
do any
I
any
can't have
extra.
caffeine. I'll tell you a funny story. Used to be years ago, I couldn't tolerate caffeine. I mean, you'd be scraping me off the walls and the ceiling. It just jolts my nerves. Oh, I can't. It doesn't make me any hyper and it just makes me uncomfortable. So I remember going to restaurants many years ago and I would order a decaf cappuccino after dinner with whomever I was dating or whatever, friends. And I'd say to the waiter, make sure when you bring the coffees around the table that we know which one is my decaf. And I said, if you make a mistake, I want you to give me your phone number because I'm going to call you at 1 o'clock this morning when I'm bouncing off the walls and I can't sleep. And the waiter would look at me and said, okay, ma'am, we'll put a little blue marker on this cup or we'll put a spoon inside the cup and we'll know which one is a decaf. And when he brought the coffee, I'd say, are you absolutely sure? Everybody at the table thought that was pretty funny, but I said, I want your phone number. I don't care who you're sleeping with. I'm waking you up if I can't sleep because it's your fault, Buster. Anyway, I haven't I haven't remembered that in years. Isn't that funny? I
Yeah.
have a Keurig and an espresso, and when my daughter and her family come, they bring their own pods because I don't do I do the decaf once in a while, but they bring their own full strength pods, and they also roast their own beans, and they have whatever. So they use the Keurig in an espresso isn't used much anymore. I used to be able to drink. At one point, I wanted to lose a lot of weight. Many years ago, I was working in Manhattan, and I would drink 5 to 10 cups of coffee a day and eat rice for lunch. And I go to a Chinese restaurant in Manhattan and buy rice with a little bit of duck sauce, and I would
Yeah.
eat that. And then I had graham crackers for a snack. I lost so much weight, people thought I was dying. It was like, what did you do? But
That's quite the routine.
coffee was part of that. Coffee was part of that. I had a Mr. Coffee at home, and I would just brew cup after cup. I just loved coffee. And now I would give anything for a really good cup of decaf that tastes like the real thing. I'm a tea,
Mhm.
peppermint tea and Earl Grey now. So very interesting. I skipped one question about your plans for 2025. Anything you want to share with us before we go to your movie and TV preferences? Anything,
Mhm.
Eric? What are you going to do this year? You said about teaching and all of that. Is there anything really special on the horizon for you this year that you aspire to or that you're planning specially? Anything you want to tell me?
I don't know if there's one specific thing that I'm aspiring for this year. So I don't know if that's either a good thing or not so good things. It's really more about just kind of maintaining all the great things that happened in 2024, even in 2023 and years prior. Maintaining, good physical and mental well-being, continuing to teach to the best of my abilities and, be there for my students, spending as much quality time with family as I will this year as I did last year. Travel, if I did have to give you a direct answer for one specific thing, I'll say continue to travel as
Where?
much.
Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go?
I got to get back down to Florida. I would say I'm a big
Ah,
Miami fan. I love South
oh,
Beach. I love, the warm weather and climate that exists there.
Hmm.
I love, like I said, being, on the water or being by the beach. So that would be probably one specific thing for 2025.
Nice.
In the
Nice.
next, I guess, 11 and a half months would be trip back down to Miami. There we go.
Very, very nice. By the way, do you cook? Do you live by yourself? Can I ask that? And do you cook? What's your favorite thing to cook or mostly take out? Tell the
Mhm.
truth.
Yeah, I do live by myself. So I value, even though I love my family, my independence and being self-sufficient. One of the things I learned many, many years ago too was, not even if you live independently, but it's so important to be able to cook for oneself, clean for oneself. So I do pride myself on cooking all my meals. I'm celiac, which means I have to adhere to a very strict gluten-free diet. So that
Yep.
is another key reason why I have to, cook for my own as opposed to relying on restaurants or takeout, delivery services just because of that exposure. And I kind of chuckled when you were talking about that decaf, coffee example. And I almost have to say the same thing at restaurants saying, are you sure that this is gluten free or are you sure that this
Yes.
is not
Yes.
contaminated? Because it
Yes.
can have, serious ramifications.
Yes. Absolutely, which we don't want to know about. Okay.
Or just would keep me up as well. Yeah, or just
So
make
what's the
stomach
best
ache.
dish that you cook at home? What's your if you had we're having company over and you say, "Well, I'm celiac, I'm gluten free, but I want you to come over for dinner and my specialty is," what would that specialty be that you would offer them? What would you cook?
Yeah, I would say besides maybe calling Domino's Pizza for, the Gen Zs that love to eat takeout, if I was doing an old-fashioned meal that I was preparing from Eric M himself, I would say backstage chicken-based casserole. So what that is like chicken, broccoli, mushroom soup, cheese, and some breadcrumbs, gluten-free, of course. And it's one of my favorite staples that I ate growing up. My mom and grandma would always make it for me. So not nearly to their capabilities or to their, best, creation of this dish, but it's maybe the third best, version of backstage chicken. But I have made it for friends before and they do quite enjoy it. So
I
maybe I'll have to
used
make it for you sometime, Bonnie. If I'm,
I would love that. I used to make something very similar, but my recipe had white wine added in to thin out the mushroom soup. And
that
then
sounds really
bake the chicken. You can even add some for you gluten-free noodles to the casserole and the broccoli with fresh broccoli, I assume, or you could use frozen broccoli. But I would make the sauce the very thick with the mushroom soup and the wine, and then place the chicken in it. And I think I used breadcrumbs, and I know there was cheese, cheddar cheese. I think right now it would be Jack cheese, Colby Jack, which is a mixture of
good.
cheeses. I buy
Yeah.
that shredded, finely shredded in a bag, and it's wonderful for mixing and for melting very quickly because it's shredded. Colby Jack. And same dish. And I used to serve that to company all the time, but it had, I think, a quarter of a cup of a white wine, a Chardonnay, something like that, very light. And
Yeah.
add that to the mushroom soup, thin it out a little bit, and then add your chicken and your broccoli and your cheese. Try that, Eric.
It's
Okay.
making me hungry now, even though I just had breakfast, an
I
hour
know,
ago.
and I
I'm already
didn't.
craving
So
lunch and dinner.
I'll cook it. You'll come here. That's fine.
Yeah, I
Okay.
almost made you cry. You almost made my stomach growl. So we're even
We're
now.
even now. There you go. Movies, TV. What's your favorite genre? Drama, fantasy, musical, romance, mystery, comedy, sci-fi, thriller, war. Who are your favorite actors or actresses? Anybody we would know? Go.
Yeah, this is probably the first and maybe only time you'll get this response when you're asking this question to all your cool dude guests. I'm a huge, huge soap opera fan. Probably the only person, 30 male that would be as enthusiastic about soap operas as I am. I know that we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I hope for our rest of our audience, you'll appreciate my response for why I love soap operas. Is
Yes.
again, my grandparents and I were very close. They passed away, 5 and 3 years ago or 4 years ago, respectively.
Sorry.
Missed them
Sorry.
both, each and every day. But as we talked about earlier, that's life. They lived well into their 90s and they lived a, dare I say, good and fulfilling life. One of the reasons why, I still watch soap operas is my grandma, especially, loved watching soap operas after she retired, from her working career. And I'll never forget, I can't remember how old I was, maybe 12 or 13 years at the time. My sister and I would spend summers, in Edmonton. So for those that aren't familiar with Edmonton from Calgary, it's about a 3 hour drive from, Calgary from where I am to Edmonton where they lived. And we would spend summers there. And I remember one day My grandma was watching her soap operas, and I peeked in and said, "Grandma, what are you watching?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm watching All My Children. I've been watching this for many, many years." And I thought, "Oh, this looks kind of interesting. This love triangle angle seems quite fascinating, or fascinating to a 13-year-old." And the next day, I joined my grandma in watching All My Children, and sure enough, the rest is history, as they say. As I was a huge All My Children fan, especially with my grandma. Even if we were in different cities, we would watch, All My Children at our respective times. Me coming home from school, her during the afternoon, and we would touch base on the phone and just discuss all things All My Children. I almost, wish I could do that right now, as it was just so much excitement, so fascinating for my grandma and I. And then once All My Children was canceled, we had to decide on another soap opera to watch, and it was General Hospital that was the choice of selection. So I had to almost convince my grandma that All My Children is unfortunately done. Now we've got to watch General Hospital. So I've been watching General Hospital for almost, geez, 15 years now. And yeah, so not as, I don't know what genre we want to include soap operas in, maybe a little bit of sci-fi, sometimes a
Perfect.
little bit of economy, or comedy,
Perfect.
but soap operas for me, Bonnie.
That's perfect. Oh, Eric, we have another overlap. My grandma, one of my two grandmas loved soap operas.
There we
And
go.
in
See?
her day, it was Young Dr. Malone. It was As the World Turns. It was Days of Our Lives. I
Yep.
became a soap opera fan, not with her. She lived in Brooklyn. I was in Queens, but I became a fan, let's just say, a real fan of a couple of operas, soap operas. And I
Mhm.
watched them and I love the characters and I followed them. And there's Victor and there's Erica and there's, the doctor and Larry, somebody,
Yeah.
the doctor below was so good looking. It's such a fun.
Do you still
And
watch any to this day? Like,
no, I don't. What I do is I watch different kind of soapy shows. I like French language detective shows, procedurals that
oh,
are
nice.
have very quirky female lead actors, quirky characters. So there's Candice Renoir, there's Alice Nevers, there is Master Crimes, there is Astrid, that's a real police procedural, all in French language. Then there's Fasca. She's a detective and she rides horses on her farm in the beginning of the show. You see her galloping through the fields. And all of
Yeah.
these women are quirky. They have very defined personalities. They live outside the box. They think outside the box. They find ways to solve crimes by looking at things nobody else sees. They have a humanity, almost sometimes a maternal humanity about a sight or a smell or something being out of place or asking a question of a victim of a perpetrator that nobody else on the detective or the police team would think of asking. It's quirky and it's theirs, and they help solve crimes. And people mock them, and people make fun of them, and people fall in love with them, and people fall out of the love. Another one was Tandem, which was a
Oh,
friend. These
yeah.
shows run for 15, 20 seasons. These are not one-offs, these shows. And the one that just dropped, there's a couple. I think the agents, one just dropped from Europe, and I only got two episodes, and I can't think, but I watched it the other night, and I was upset because it's from 2015, and they only dropped two episodes from a show that started 10 years ago in France. I can't
Yeah.
remember the name of it, but I watched so many of them. And the Art of the Crime, Lar de Crime, and she is an art aficionado who works at the Louvre as an art historian, and he is a shy cop. Nicholas Gobb,
Okay.
G-O-B,
Yeah.
stunning
Yeah.
man, and he is the detective who knows nothing about art, and they fall in love, but they refuse to admit it, so they try to push each other away. But they solve art crimes together, and she hallucinates that she is talking to the artist who's been dead for hundreds of years, and they have an actor or actress portraying that Gauguin or Degas or Da Vinci. They have an actor portraying the actor, the artist in their setting, speaking to her about the meaning of the paintings.
Wow.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
If you can handle English subtitles, The Art of Crime, R Lar apostrophe ART de Crime, CRIME. It's a wonderful show. I think it's on its fourth or fifth season. And aside from their ongoing, offgoing romance, the art is you're learning a lot about art at the same time. And it's very, very, very quirky, very, very cool show. So that's what I like. So in a way, those are French soap operas about quirky female detectives and their
Yeah, yeah.
entourages. So there. So I'll go with that one with you. Very, very interesting. Any favorite actors or actresses we would know that you want to talk about before we go to our wacky stories? What do you got?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I love Will Ferrell. If we talk about favorite actors,
Hmm.
I'm not as much into movies as maybe the rest of the population, but
I'm not either. I don't watch
okay, good.
movies.
We got another thing in common there too. But I do like a lot of Will Ferrell's movies, especially, like Elf during the holiday season.
Of
My
course.
sister and I to this day still, enjoy quoting lines from Elf. As far as actresses, I mean, I really liked Angelina Jolie, in a lot of her movies, or at least, many, many years ago. So I would say Will Ferrell, Angelina Jolie, and I would say some other kind of older school
Mhm.
actors as well. Like I used to watch westerns, country westerns with my grandfather. I liked, the actors and actresses in Casablanca that I watched with my
Oh,
mom and stepdad many
yes.
years ago. So this kind of ties back to what we talked about earlier about just the way people used to dress back in the day, the way that they would present themselves, not just in movies, but kind of the style or the importance of fashion. So I'd say some of those older school, actors and actresses from the 1930s, 1940s, even 1950s, I think would be ones that I enjoy more though, more so than today's, actors, actresses, or influencers, as we say.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you very much. So, do you have any wacky stories for me? I call them say what? Do you have any of those?
So I had to stick to kind of the soap opera theme for the first wacky
And do you
story.
want to show anything you want to show on the screen or do you want to just talk about them?
Oh, I'm happy to just talk about it. Yeah. So
Okay,
this
go
was
ahead.
one that I can't remember the exact date that this happened. That's why I'm wanting to do it more talk the explanation on it. But you mentioned Days of Our Lives earlier, so that's
Hmm.
another soap opera I haven't watched as much as General Hospital or All My Children or even As the World Turns, many many years ago. But in 2013, the many of the cast from Days of Our Lives participated in a dance off on social media. I can't remember what social media platforms they
No.
transferred over to, but I know for sure one of them was Facebook and I think Instagram as well at the time. So seeing, these actors and actresses that you normally see on the TV, participate in a dance off, I think is pretty, caused me to say, what? Is this really happening? Those that might have, been villains in the show are now all of a sudden letting loose, in a dance off.
Wow,
That's a
that's
big one that,
cool.
yeah.
That is really cool. Let me share one with you. I picked up a couple of interesting ones. I don't know if this will interest you, but I'm going to share my, hold on, I'm going to share my screen here. Share screen, desktop one. There we go. Okay. So this, I just saw this in a news blast the other day. This is on Nice News, and I get the nicenews.com newsletter every day. I get the Neuron, I get AI Secrets. I get a bunch, and I pick up these articles. So this is a picture of an EV at the Detroit Auto Show, and they
Ooh.
released the results of a survey showing that 72% of U.S. consumers are likely or very likely to consider an EV electric vehicle for their next car purchase. There's growing attention toward EVs. Interestingly enough, so I didn't go to show any of the others, but I thought you'd get a kick out of that. What's your driving experience, Eric? What do you drive?
So my very first vehicle that I ever drove, I guess from my on my own, was a Chrysler Sebring. So
Oh,
for that reason, I always have a sentimental attachment to Chrysler Sebrings.
they're pretty
And then
cars. They're very
cars,
pretty cars.
yeah, they don't make them as much as they used to, like I said back in the day for Chryslers. And then the other one is BMWs. My dad, drives a BMW. My stepdad had a BMW for a brief period of time. So for kind of sentimental reasons, I'm very attached to BMWs. They are a very nice ride too, especially in the colder Alberta climates that we can experience. I don't like being, out and about in the winter, especially on those icy roads. But when I
Right.
do have to, dress nicely for the grocery store, I always enjoy being. I had to go back to our example on
That was very well
that.
put. By the way,
Thank you.
if I say Z4, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I'll know a little bit about what you're talking about. Yeah, it's
There's
more.
a
Yeah.
beautiful BMW Z4 in my garage. It's black and it's black leather seats and it's got a dark gray convertible top. And the
Whoa, that's
front
incredible.
license plate on mirror says AKA Radio Red in red letters on a mirrored plate on the vanity plate in front. I had to tell you that.
Well, that's incredible, Connie. I mean, when you get the convertible down, once the snow is all gone, it's going to be a nice feeling.
It's lovely. I live in a very treed, lakey area. We have lakes and we have a little Tennessee River and the Tellico Dam and a lot of trees. And it's a beautiful ride, even just to go to the supermarket 3 miles away with the top
Yeah.
down. And I have to decide, do I really want in the summer that 95-degree heat on my red hair? But sometimes I do because the wind is just lovely. But you and I'm right now a fan of BMWs, even though I was only a Nissan Z girl for many, many, many years. I had 5 of them. But I had to have a Z, so I got a Z4. So I just wanted to tell you, I got my Beamer in the garage.
For what it's worth, when I had my Chrysler Sebring before, it would never get quite as warm here, even in the summertime, as it does, down in Tennessee. But I always enjoyed, having the roof down. I mean, still having sunscreen on my face and sunglasses. But that's one of my favorite driving experiences is, driving with the roof down and just soaking up that air and just experiencing kind of that therapeutic component of driving, a convertible. That's one of the, again, best yet simplest, feelings within life.
Absolutely. Well put. You said Beamer. I had to tell you I got one here.
I'm glad you
Okay.
did.
Too many intersections here, kid. We might have known each other in a past life or in my past life, your current life. Do you have another wacky story for me?
Another wacky story was I had to keep with kind of a California or U.S. theme for our American audience and viewers here. So in 2011, the iconic Hollywood sign was vandalized as a prank from local students. I'm not sure what group of students or if they were junior high students or high school students at
But
the
they
time.
weren't your students. They weren't
No,
your.
no, definitely not my students.
Okay.
I always joke with my students. I say I don't need to know everything that happens in your personal lives, guys and gals, but don't commit any crimes, don't commit any serious felonies. So thankfully, not my students. But I just found that interesting. Is everybody knows what the Hollywood sign is? I thought I'd bring that up, especially to our viewers or friends that we know, in the Southern California area that have been, tragically impacted by these wildfires.
Yeah.
I wanted to just, bring that specifically to remind everyone just how valuable and important, California is, how the city of Los Angeles means a lot to many of us, and just know that they got through that vandalism incident in 2011, and I have no doubts that they'll get through, the wildfire situations that
Yeah.
are happening now and come back, better and stronger than ever.
Thank you very much. Let me do a share here. Let me go back to my desktop. Do you have any pets? I haven't asked you. Do you have cats or dogs or anything, Eric? What do you got?
Yeah, when I was living back at home with my parents or growing up, schooling wise, we have, or we still do have, a beagle ear. So he's half beagle, half King Charles Spaniel. So we are dog lovers, in our, family dynamics. And
Well,
cats are much appreciated too.
I have a lot of cat friends. I'm a non-pet. I had fish at one point, goldfish, and I knocked into the table that the tank was on, and it broke and spilled all over the carpet in my living room in an
Oh,
apartment in Eugene, Oregon. We had to bring in big fans and heaters, and we couldn't be there for almost a week. It was horrible. Anyway, I found this strange story: the 10 best cities for cat lovers around the world. There's a very pretty picture. There were cities for people who can't live without cats, and what's interesting is that they reviewed the cat cafes, the cat ownership rates, the pet stores, the cat boarding services, and veterinarians per capita for 59 cities. And they are sure they came up with a list of the top 10 cities. However, they only list 9 cities, Eric. And I went to the research site and checked it, and they still only list 9, but they say here are the top 10 cities for cat lovers. And I still don't understand how they had 9. But what's interesting is Warsaw, Poland is #1 for cat lovers with a score of 8.9 out of 10. And despite a small average dwelling size, it's one of the highest rates in cat ownership, 41% of households. Interesting. Warsaw has the most vets per capita, 13.9. I want to know who the point 0.9 vet is. That must be odd, per 100,000 people. And the second place goes to Auckland, New Zealand, has fewer pet stores than Warsaw, but the same rate of cat ownership in cat cafes per capita. Rounding out the top is Brisbane, Australia. The veterinarian and cat boarding services are above average in number, 8.9 vets. So we went to, yes, we went to that. How many vets did we have before? 8.9, yes. 8.9 vets and 2.2 boarding options per 100,000. And then add the list, Calgary,
mhm.
Eric. Calgary's number 4. Edmond is number 5. Ottawa, Gatineau is number 6. Perth, Australia is number 7. Vancouver is 8. And Sydney, Australia. So it looks like Poland is the outlier here, New Zealand, and then we have mostly Canada ranking for places where
Wow.
people love cats. There you go. Okay, that's my second story. What's your third story?
Just a quick comment on that. I'm surprised that there were no U.S. cities that were listed there. You would have thought that out of
Yes.
all, population of almost what 340 million
Yep.
residents, that at least one or two would make the top 9/10. So
Yep.
interesting that it was largely again Canadian cities,
Yep.
Australian cities, and then a Polish city as well.
Yep.
Wow, that's well, I guess
That was
lots of
a
cat
shocker.
lovers.
Yes, I think the rest of the article talked about why U.S. cities didn't make it, but I'm not sure who these researchers were or what the pool of considerations was, but that's what they came up with. So I have to send this to my cat lover friends and see if they're going to Poland anytime soon. I don't think so. Okay, what's your third story?
Yeah, so third story going back to this theme of soap operas. So in 2013, the legendary Erica Kane, who was portrayed by Susan Lucic, was caught,
I
or I
I, men
guess,
I mentioned Erica when we were talking about soap operas a few minutes ago. I said the names of characters, and I said Erica. I was talking about Erica
oh yeah,
Kane.
I picked up on that too. So this is, I guess, perfect then.
Stop.
So yeah, she
Stop.
was spotted working as a cashier at a local Los Angeles Costco. And fans, picked up on that, or those that knew that that was Susan Lucic working there, picked up on that, shared that on social media. And for those that again didn't watch All My Children or are not familiar with Susan Lucic slash the character of Erica Kane, she was very much a stylist. She was very much someone who lived a luxurious lifestyle. So to have Susan Lucic or her character of Erica Kane, working, as a local cashier, being a regular day-to-day citizen was quite unique. What I probably would have had, crazy reaction if I had seen her at that time. So just, yeah, that one really resonated with me as far as just, wacky news stories too. So you just never know where you'll find people, not just in a city like Los Angeles, but out and about everywhere, just kind of the things, people might do outside of their day-to-day jobs.
That is cool. I have one more for you, and this one goes to metal detectorists. I didn't even know there was such a title. Discover a 1,200-year-old graves that may have belonged to high-status Viking women. They found
Ooh.
jewelry, now textile tools. A farm that had textile production was considered high status back in the day, and stones positioned in the shape of a ship. Here's one of the pictures, an aerial view. Okay, and they say they unearthed coins, jewelry, and stones from graves in Norway that might have belonged, and this was in Science Norway. They discovered by a group of amateur metal detectorists in fall 2023, so it was about a year and a half ago. The graves date to between 800 and 850 CE, the beginning of the Viking Age. They found a rich variety of artifacts, gilded oval brooches, part of a metal cauldron, and a book clasp repurposed as jewelry that may have come from a monastery. They found silver coins. They found a necklace made of 46 glass beads and trefoil brooches used to fashion clothing. A lot of this was repurposed. They found a frying pan. They found a bronze key. They found a spindle, a weaving sword, and wool shears. Interesting. Some of the artifacts appear to have originated in England and Ireland, which means part of the Vikings' long distance trade routes, but the women had their own ties to continental Europe. But, Eric, no bones were found. So they
Huh.
think it's possible that the human remains disintegrated in the soil, but they think they were empty to begin with. These were cenotaphs, Cenotaphs. These were memorials honoring individuals who've been buried somewhere else. Interesting?
That's really, really interesting. It just shows how, the timeline of different things. And was there any update on if those items are still around or what they decided to do with them, or if they just kind of left them within the
I
spot that they
think
found
they're
them on?
going into a museum. Let's see. One of the rare coins is likely a Hedeby coin made in southern Denmark. This is from the University Museum of Bergen. I think there was a picture. They don't say what they're going to do with it. They're hoping to do further research. They think as many as 20 graves in the area. It's a race against time before they're destroyed. I don't know why they'd be destroyed, but this apparently is the University Museum of Bergen. So
Bergen.
that's
Okay.
probably where this is going. So there you go.
That's
So
incredible. Again, just a true value of, stuff from the past, and just that's one of the things too that I've learned is, these things are not as common as they once were. And I think you have to honor that history and those antiques and collectibles or items, just for so many different reasons there. So that's incredible
absolutely,
story. All the way from
absolutely.
cat cities to that. I love that transition, Bonnie.
Eric, anything else you want to add? We've covered our agenda, which is lovely. I can't believe we have so many intersections of things we like and things we've done and places we've been and things that capture our attention and our passion over the years. We have such a difference in the demographics of your demographic cohort, if you will, and mine and our ages. We won't even go into that. But it's interesting to find on my Monday night show, Read My Lips, Cool Conversations with Creatives. I go to the National Publicity Summit as a media guest, and I book 35 or 40 people right away and fill 3 or 4 months of shows. I book them, speed book them right at the top, and I get to meet them on 2 minutes clocked and timed by a monitor in 17 different breakout rooms. So I just book them. Okay, you available this date, and I put them together in panels without saying, "Oh, Eric would go well with Susan, would go well with Bobby." I don't do that, and I always am intrigued and interested and amazed by the common threads of creativity, of passions, of where people have been, of what they like, of what captures their attention. And that's always a delight for me to find the creativity thread. So you and I have found some lifetime threads, many more than I even realized. How would I know? I just get you on my Technology Revolution show and you speak in 3 minute sound bites with your wonderful predictions, and I know very little about you. And now I know more. So there you go. Anything else you want to say about you're officially now a Bonnie D's cool dude? Anything you want? How does that make you feel, Eric M?
It makes me feel incredible on so many different levels. And I was just thinking again about that earlier today throughout our conversation about, the many common elements that we have. And the main thing I want to, I guess, conclude with is just saying a huge thank you to you for inviting me on your Cool Dude show. I've so enjoyed our conversation. I so enjoyed learning about your background too. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned, or I hope everyone maybe takes away from, our conversation today is, the amazing experiences that we both had, in our lives, the importance of our respective families and how life is precious on so many different fronts. There's always going to be not so good days. There's always going to be the adversities that we've all experienced, and adversities I'm sure we'll all experience at some level in the future. We got to take things day by day. We got to soak up the sunshine, so to speak. Enjoy those car rides, enjoy the casseroles, white wine, grocery store outings, etc. So as I enter, I guess, this next, stage within my life, I'm so thankful for the amazing journey that I've had so far. And I look forward to continued, great times, conversations, and amazing, friendships and family, meetings and exchanges, in the years to come. So been an amazing journey so far. And I truly believe the best is yet to come, not just for myself, but for each and every one of us.
You're lovely. Kindness is the theme that runs through everything you do. And by the way, you coming up on any of my, you were already on my prediction
Uh,
special. Which show are you on? Are you on next week's
I'm going
show?
to
Two
see
weeks?
you again next Wednesday. So I'll be back on for Technology Revolution on Wednesday, the 29th.
The
I'm not sure.
29th,
I
yes.
think, yeah, I believe Bob is on the panel again too. So I'm looking forward to
Yes.
seeing and speaking with him. And I
Bob
know it'll
was a
be
cool
another.
dude. Bob was a cool dude a couple weeks ago. I'm going to make a request to you, Eric. How would you like to bring me some of your co-professors, some of your teaching colleagues for a show on the future of higher education, college
Ooh,
instruction, and AI? Would you be willing to do that?
I would most certainly be willing to do that. I
I would
will,
like that. You get the panel together, and I'll give you a date. I think it'll be the second week or third week of March. Okay?
okay. That sounds like a plan. I will create a great panel
You
for
will be the
those
lead
that,
on that panel. Yes. Okay. And
okay, I like
I'll
it.
set up the good. I thought that would be good. I'm looking for some different topics this year. I was actually going through my list. I have lists of all the shows I've done over many, many, many years, and I was going through my list and seeing topics I haven't covered in a while. I actually interesting. In a couple weeks, I think February 26th, I have a panel coming on around the cannabis industry.
Ooh.
And the person who I found to be the first person on the panel who's bringing the panel is the man who was my first guest on what used to be Technology Revolution, used to be Coffee Break with Game Changers, presented by SAP, October 5th, 2011. He was my first guest, and the other two guests didn't show up. And I said to him 30 seconds before live, and this way before Me Too, nobody got upset with me. Dan, honey, follow my lead. We're going to talk about mobility for an hour. And he said, Bonnie, honey, I'm there. I never went back and listened to the show. It's long gone, but I found him on LinkedIn recently. It has been 12, 13, 14 years since I've spoken to this man, and he now owns a dispensary or some kind of a cannabis production company.
Yeah.
And I said, what are you doing? And he told me, I said, bring me a panel. We just got the panel put together today, and it's going to be February 26th. So I'm looking for unusual topics that I haven't covered in a long time. So if you have any ideas, Eric, it's been absolutely lovely. Let me play the Going Out song. And this song, by the way, I wrote the lyrics, and my friend Serge Hoffman is in Paris. He's a musician, he's a composer, he's an orchestrator. He does music for Cirque du Soleil, he does music for movies, he composes for quartets and for opera singers and orchestras. And he's up and coming. He just retired from SAP after many years in technology, and he is a wonderful composer. So he's composed the music, and he's, excuse me, the singer for my lyrics. Here we go. Let's go out with this. And Eric, stick around. I want to take some pictures. Okay, here we go. Dance out.
So you wanna be
So you want to be
a
cool kid.
Hanging with the ink set.
There you go.
Looking real
Looking real, cute and fine. Casting your fakey net.
So you
Wanna be. No fakey here. Bonnie D and Eric M.